between, between tracks, between tracks, between tracks.
So I live in Kansas City, Missouri as of now.
Okay. Yeah.
I've been here, it'll be 2 years in April. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it's been I mean, I was in LA before this and New York for a short time as well.
Buffalo, right?
Buffalo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adjustments, I'm sure. Very different. But are you enjoying
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, I do like it here. It's cool.
Mhm.
I really like my job as well, which I think is kind of the primary factor in me liking it here for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's been a cool place to just kind of like not have to worry about all the I don't know, just like stuff I was worried about before with being seen and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How was like, I was gonna ask you, and I hope this isn't too personal. How is your like mental health at the moment? Just like given the climate and everything that's going on in the moment in the USA.
Um, I would say that it's better than it's been in probably like 10 years, you know,
Okay. Yeah.
because I'm not doing as much in terms of like pursuing music, like trying to really like move the needle forward. I think that was where a
Mm-hmm.
lot of my mental health struggles were coming from, actually.
Yeah.
And now that I'm not doing that, um, things haven't been quite as heavy or like stressful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so right now, yeah, it's like there's obviously a lot of stuff going on in the world, but a lot of that stuff is stuff that I can only control how I feel about it. Um,
Yeah.
and right now I'm choosing to focus on, things that are important to me, like doing a good job at work and, um, just making sure that things around the house are getting done and making sure I'm there for my partner and my
Mm-hmm.
cats. And,
Yeah.
that's all I can really do to like keep myself grounded right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course.
Well, I am part of the production team at JHS Pedals. So
Mm-hmm.
I spend a lot of days either building them or testing them. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. And that, like you were saying, that must be quite nice because it kind of gives you, it's like you're still working with something that's familiar and you're still sort of working with something that's to do with music, but there isn't that kind of stress that you get with the inconsistency of like the music industry, right? Because that's, like you were saying,
Exactly.
something that gives a lot of anxiety. Like to most of the people I've spoken to, the sort of inconsistency is what gets people feeling down in the dumps, I guess, really
Yeah.
stressed out.
I had actually found a journal that I was keeping back in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's funny, I literally was just reading through it yesterday. And in a lot of ways, that year for me was like one of my best years, but also one of the most challenging because, I had to drop off a tour that year. I broke up with my ex at that time, and I was basically homeless, living in a friend's spare room on an air mattress for about
Mm-hmm.
5 months. I also did a really big national tour and got COVID like a couple days in and had to miss a bunch of
Oh
shows.
shit. Yeah.
Um, and I recorded a whole album. Like there was
Mm-hmm.
there was so much stuff that happened in that year, and a lot of it was like again sort of out of my control in terms of getting COVID or like deals falling through or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
the kind of up and down of all that really took a toll on me. And I'm reading through this journal and seeing the stuff that I'm experiencing at that point, and I'm thinking like if I was going through that right now, I don't know if I would still like want to do any of the stuff that I was doing,
Yeah.
like just
Yeah.
the situations that I was confronted with and having to find solutions for. And, it became very heavy.
Gosh. Well, I'm happy to hear that you're sort of in a better headspace, So I think it just sort of boils down to that at the end of the day. Like, it doesn't matter what your line of work is. If you're not all right mentally, it just makes everything like so much harder, I guess, you know. How did you kind of go get into the music industry? You
Yeah.
you had like a non-traditional upbringing, right? In the sense that you guys were homeschooled.
Yeah, looking back on it, I think it was kind of the best thing ever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I was a pretty independent kid, and like I didn't have a lot of friends. I had my siblings. I've got three siblings, an older sister, a younger sister, and a younger brother. And we hung out all the time, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, yeah, I just didn't have. There wasn't a lot of outside influence, and so we would be doing stuff on our own and like making up our own games and making music together. And our schedule was pretty flexible, so
Mm-hmm.
like usually during our lunch breaks, it was like throw a frozen pizza in the oven and run downstairs and like play music for an hour, and then
Nice.
you
Yeah.
know just yeah, it's just very like a very creative environment, and there's a lot of room for experimentation. There was a point
Yeah.
where I thought I was going to be a professional skateboarder, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like pursuing that, and then there was a point where I wanted to be a professional comic book artist,
Okay.
and so I was like pursuing that, and there,
Yeah.
there were all these kind of different phases that I went through in my, you know, kind of like sub 10 to like early teens. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then I got to be about 15 and music just kind of took over everything, you know?
Mm-hmm. Do you
Yeah.
feel like, so they were obviously very supportive, like throughout these different phases in your life, I'm guessing, right? That's
Yes. That's,
brilliant.
yeah.
That's so nice. Do you think that skateboarding kind of like opened your mind to new genres of music at all? Like, do you think that sort of influenced the type of music you're making today?
Yes. 100%.
I thought so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I grew up playing the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games, um,
Nice.
on the PlayStation. And, I just all the music in those games was pivotal to my taste at the time.
Mhm.
And it's ironic because for a long time when I would tell people I made music, they would assume it was like rap music or whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, which I don't see where they were getting that from because I never looked like a rapper. I never
Hmm.
talked, or there was nothing about my
There was like nothing
energy.
about you that gave off that vibe.
Yeah, but I think
Yeah.
just because I'm black, you wouldn't
Hmm.
assume, especially again, this is like we've kind of reached a point where like people are starting to really acknowledge that black music and rock music are synonymous, and that
Hmm.
we basically created this whole genre. Um,
Yeah.
but for a long time, we get a lot of questions in interviews just saying like, how does it feel to be a black person in a white dominated genre? And I'm just like, I don't
Hmm.
really think about it like that, like I
Yeah.
just make the music that I like to hear. And the
Hmm.
music that connected with me first was rock music, from those games or from, whatever TV I was watching, like the stuff that really
Hmm.
stuck out to me had guitars and drums in it.
And what's like the first instrument you learned to play? Was it drums?
It was drums. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would play drums at church a lot. I was always begging to like get on the kit after the service, and um, my dad was the pastor at our church, and so
Hmm.
he was always like supportive of the music, but like not supportive of disruption,
Okay.
And
Makes sense. Yeah.
after church, everybody's talking and trying to, hang out and everything, and I'm just trying to get up there and practice. And he's
Play.
like, so I did eventually get a kit. We kept it in the basement at the house, and that was basically where the floodgates opened. I was about
Mhm.
12, I'd say.
You're not touring at the moment, right? Now that you've moved, you're sort of in a different type of
Right.
phase of your life. What would you say something you miss about touring, besides like
Hmm.
the thrill you get when you're on stage? Like, what is the most fun part, and what is the sort of most challenging part for you?
Yeah. I think one of the things I miss the most, honestly, is just being with my band, like my guys.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a bunch of different guys that I've with over the last few years of touring, and we all just it feels like a brotherhood at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and so when we're all together and we're all like, just uh, traveling the country together there's inside jokes from tours ago. There's new stuff that gets we come up with, and I just love those guys, so it just kind of feels like being around my family, and we get to do like a cool road trip together.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, of course.
I also miss just I've always kind of had a bit of wanderlust.
Mm-hmm.
um, and I miss waking up in a new city every day, and having to figure out what the plan is every day. Like I like that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Kind of keeps you on your
Yeah,
toes. I would say that's probably
yeah.
something I like about touring as well, is I tend to get bored pretty easily. I it's weird because I think I really need a strict routine. I'm someone that thrives with having a routine, but I can also get bored if I'm in the same setting for too long. So I feel like being on tour is great because you sort of have a routine in a sense that you're doing a lot of the same things every day, but you're just sort of waking up in different cities and you're seeing different stuff. So I think I really love that part of it. What would you say is something, if you were to tour again, is that something you're thinking about? Not really. You don't know. Is it something that's like coming up in the nearby future?
Any plans to at the
Mm-hmm.
moment? I'm not against it, but I mean, everything in my life for the most part, like I'm down for almost anything in life.
Mm-hmm.
It has to make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the way things look right now for me, and also just for like the music industry as a whole, I don't really see a place that I fit into it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like professionally, I think right
Yeah.
now for me is a time to like figure out what I want to say, and um, get a little bit more comfortable with um, making music from a different place.
Mm-hmm.
I had intentions of really like taking some time off from music,
Mm-hmm.
um, making an effort to actually just like stop for a second. That hasn't quite happened yet.
Mm-hmm.
um, because all last year I was mixing projects for some other bands, and right now I'm like finishing up um, a score for a short film. Um, and so I've still been working on stuff, and
Yeah.
I'm working on a couple tracks for one of my coworkers right now, like kind of helping him get some of his ideas together. Um, so I haven't actually like stopped fully.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really working on my own stuff at the moment, um, or like, and I, again, have any plans to tour, but um, again, if something did come up that was like, oh, this is not only going to be beneficial, it's like it makes sense. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I would
Like it
potentially look at,
aligns. Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it would have to be, um, I'd have to obviously, I'm not willing to stop doing my job to go on tour at this
To
point.
pursue. It's just, it's a really, really complicated time, I think, in touring. Um,
Yeah,
and
there's been some really in the United States. There's been a few like legendary venues that have closed like in the last year. Like places you wouldn't have ever thought would close.
wood
Uh,
close, yeah.
yeah, are closed, and um, I guess if I were to tour again, I would be less focused on trying to play the biggest rooms, or trying to um, even be like super visible, because I think with
Mm-hmm.
touring comes marketing and all that stuff. And I obviously want people to be at the shows, but like, I think what is more interesting to me right now is trying to find places that are unconventional, that can be spread like word of mouth in each city, you know, like if it's
Hmm.
somebody's basement or like a
Yeah.
VFW hall, you know, stuff that's like way more DIY, way more down to earth and like,
Yeah.
you know, just playing for the people who want to be there, you
Yeah.
know, like
Exactly.
I've always been a little bit more focused on like the underground versus like trying to break through to the mainstream or something.
Hmm.
Um, you know, a lot of the bands that or artists that I um, usually feel the most connected with aren't, uh, um, you know, the biggest artists or the most famous people or whatever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Same.
Sometimes when an artist or a band gets too big, you know, like if you feel a little bit alienated from their whole deal, you know,
Yeah.
especially if you came up with them. So I feel like Mags is definitely the latter of those things for most people. It's like this is kind of like my secret, and like I show this to people that I really like and trust, and I don't show it to everybody because this is my thing, you
Yeah.
know. And so I think for that reason, it's like you know, if my music was something that somebody connected to while they were in college and, you know, they've been listening to me for the last 10 years, like I know they'll be at any show I play in their city, regardless
Hmm.
of if it's like a big one, I'm coming through on a big tour
Or
or
something
if,
small.
yeah, or if
Yeah.
I'm headlining
Intimate.
and yeah. And I don't think that it has to always be that like, you know, the bigger side of things or the more like the more impressive side of things with all the
Yeah.
optics, you know, it can definitely be tougher to, you know, get bookings if you're not necessarily appealing to the machine, so to speak. You
Hmm.
know, I've had a few booking agents in the past, and like, you know, it really is about optics. It's like how many tickets can you sell in this city, or
Yeah.
like, you know, how many heads can you bring, and you know, do we need a local opener? Da, da, da. It's like it's all very political at a point.
Yeah.
Um, and that just doesn't interest me at all. I think I think as we've sort of surrendered our power to these corporations and like, you know, it's like in a sense, I think TikTok and Instagram and social media is helpful in a sense of it
Hmm.
being exposed to new stuff. Like I find a lot of my music that I like the new stuff I found on TikTok lately. You know, but at the same time, it's like um, the method that the way that it's being delivered to us where it is packaged in this like it's got to be in this format so people see it kind of thing,
Hmm.
you know, or
Yeah.
it's got to be like I don't know, there was a point where it went from like um things looking really like polished and professional and high quality to now it's like we've already hit the counterculture of
Like,
that where they want it to be
yeah.
very you know, DIY and authentic
Yeah.
and you know that's all fine but it's like if I'm constantly trying to pay attention to what's going to work for people to hear my music, I'm probably making less good music, you know.
Hmm.
uh, at the end of the
Like
day,
trends, right? Because that's what it is. It's a trend. It's a
yeah,
bunch of trends. Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know, I think I'd rather like I don't really have the answers, honestly. You know, I
Hmm.
think we're at
Neither
kind
do
of a
I.
point where nobody has the answers, not even the labels, not even the people who
Yeah.
are suggesting that we do this stuff. Like nobody actually knows what works at this point,
Hmm.
which in a way is sort of liberating because if there isn't really a clear path, then that allows you to make your own path.
Make a new one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
and um, I think for me, like especially when I was really in it, like I always knew that like being a sort of like half musician, half content creator, like wasn't really my bag. Um, and I got in a lot of disagreements with managers and with labels and stuff about that topic
Like the
specifically.
consistency of having
Yeah,
to stay on top of it.
and you know, just you know, for me personally, it's like I'm kind of similar to you, what you said, like you do better with routines and having some structure in your day. Like that's
Hmm.
honestly why having the full-time job has been great for me because I have structure. Um,
Hmm.
whereas if I'm left to my own devices, you know, I wake up at 1 p.m. and I don't eat my first meal until 7 p.m.,
Hmm.
and I smoke a bunch of weed and like things don't get done. Um,
Yeah.
so, uh, and, leaving it up to me to come up with my own content schedule, just like, like probably
Yeah.
not in my personal best interest to, try and figure that out for myself. I've
Yeah.
also had people hand me content schedules and like, here's all you have to
Like a
do
little
to,
booklet. Yeah.
yeah, like, or like a PDF of like a strategy. And for some reason, it just kind of, it always rubbed me the wrong way of like, here are the keys to going viral. It's like,
Hmm.
this is a blueprint for a plan that like, I don't want to execute,
Be
like,
violent. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm like, this is, even though this is the answer, it's like, this still isn't my answer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just stubborn and a little bit old school when it comes to like what, what I want to do with my music, because I don't honestly at this point, like I've kind of done everything I wanted to do in a lot of
Hmm.
ways. Like I've done some really big tours. I've gotten to collaborate with some artists that I respect. I've got some respect from artists that I am impressed by, and like
Hmm.
um, I've made albums, like I've produced, like I've done it all, and it's not like I even did that much, but like if I was looking at, or I should say, if I went back in time and I showed 15-year-old me like what I've
You'd be
done,
stoked.
I
Yeah.
would be my mind would be blown,
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
so in that way, it's like I've succeeded like 10 times over, you know.
Yeah.
And so anything that happens after this, for me, I think is just like it's just like
Like an
icing on the cake.
extra. Yeah, like a
Yeah,
bonus cherry on top.
yeah,
That's such a beautiful way of looking at it, though, because it's so nice that you can like recognize that. Because I think a lot of people, even myself included, aren't able to recognize that because we're always like chasing something ahead, you know? We have a goal, we have this like dream, then we accomplish it. And it goes back to that thing of also not being like present because I know I've had these sort of goals and things I wanted to achieve in my career. And I was so excited about getting there. And then when the thing, when the thing happens, it's almost like the joy wasn't there anymore. And I think it's just because we're constantly like chasing the next big thing
yeah,
that can also be quite dangerous in a way because you don't like appreciate all the things you've actually done in a sense. So it's great
yeah.
that you have that like awareness, you know, because
It's
I don't.
honestly, it's very difficult to appreciate anything nowadays
Mm.
because of how consumerism works. It's like,
Hmm.
um, I remember being on tour with Sleeping with Sirens. That was like,
Hmm.
I think the second or third to last tour I did before I took a break. That was like early 2023. And I remember like getting on stage at the first show, and there's 3,000 people like jam packed in this room in like Little Rock, Arkansas. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And none of them had ever heard my music. And halfway through the set, like I started noticing people like locking in with me.
Hmm.
And I was like, even up to that point, like I had done a few tours and like I had gotten a lot more comfortable on stage. So by the time we played that stage, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And I wasn't playing guitar. It was just me singing and the band was playing behind me. And I've always kind of had this kind of technique with performing where I'm like finding people to connect with in the audience. So I'll kind of, I don't know, I just pick people. It doesn't always, sometimes it's random, but sometimes someone will just be doing something
Like
or giving me,
catch your eye. Yeah.
yeah, it'll catch my eye. They'll be giving me some energy that like is helping me connect with the people around them.
Hmm.
So I remember being up on stage at that show, and a few songs in, I start seeing some heads going like this, and I start
Hmm.
seeing the energy start to build, and I'm like, this is going to be a great tour, because
Yeah.
these people, they get what I'm doing, you
Hmm.
know, And even though it's not as heavy and not as like um full and like huge sounding as like the other two bands that were on the bill, I'm like, this is like authentically me. I'm giving you who I am every
Yeah.
single night on stage. And I felt like that was kind of like the height of my power in a way, you know? And I think that's one of the things that I am able to do in any live situation is like get the audience on my side. I can transfer that same kind of energy into like my day to day at home, like when I was being homeschooled, you know.
Hmm.
Always had a pretty solid idea of who I am and what I where I wanted to go. At least with music, like with other things, you know. But like with
Hmm.
music, it was always like I want to be on stage. I want to be in the van. I want to make people happy and get people excited, you know,
Yeah.
and give them something to remember, you know.
Hmm.
In a way, like I think ADHD is sort of a blessing and a curse, you know,
Hmm.
because in one sense of it, it's like um, sometimes I feel like my brain is kind of in between universes, and
Hmm.
you know, I think of creative solutions for things a lot that maybe other people wouldn't think of, or like um, I think it really helps me when I am locked in with music because it's like it's an attention deficit. So
Yeah.
you know, in most cases, I think I'm always thinking about a bunch of different things all the time, and nothing is ever really like. There's not a lot of groundedness in my mind, um, but that kind of leads me into like different creative modes. You know,
Yeah.
like if I'm working on something, like I could take an idea and go 3 to 5 different directions in just a few seconds, just to like be like, okay, that's cool, let's do that, and then I chase
Hmm.
that rabbit trail for a while, and that may take
Yeah.
me somewhere else. It's kind of an adventure creatively, you know. Um, and I think having structure in my day to day does help like satiate some of the flightiness that I would be prone to if I was left to my own devices. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that that kind of like slows down your mind in the sense that, because you were saying like you have a lot of thoughts and all the time going. When you're like busy creating music, does it sort of help ease your mind to sort of like focus on one thing? Or are you still sort of like all over the show?
Um, I wouldn't use the word ease, but it
Hmm.
definitely helps me concentrate a bit more.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, I guess usually how it goes is I have to really, it's a struggle sometimes to actually just sit down on my computer and start because
Hmm.
I'll just start kind of dilly dallying and like, you know, I'll be like wiping off the counters and then I'll like go to a different room and like turn some music
Yeah.
on. And I'll go to a different room and I'll just kind of be putting all these obstacles in my way to keep me
Like
from
procrastinating. Yeah.
procrastinating. Yeah, that's the word. And then when I do start, once I start to get the wheels going, you know, once the engine starts going, then it's like everything kind of gets quiet, and I'm
Hmm.
like just in my own little world. Which again, you know, I think at one point when I was living alone and single, and I just had all the time in the world to work on music, like I would go on these benders almost for days or a week sometimes of just um, you know, staying up till whatever o'clock in the morning and, you know, eating once a day and barely drinking any water and just
Hmm.
like smoking a ton of weed and just working, you know.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, I was making a lot of progress and I was doing a lot of, you know, creative adventuring, I guess, but at the expense of my physical health.
I was
You
gonna
know,
say it's
yeah.
not something that's great like long term,
No, and
you
I would get
know.
out to I would take walks and stuff, and like I would try to like take breaks and stuff, but like it was very difficult to pry myself away from my computer once the machine starts to go, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Did you find? that you were feeling really creative, like whilst you're on tour, for example? Or do you find that it normally comes to you when you're almost like bored and don't have much going on? Was it different?
Um, that's a good question. I think it depends on the context of what I'm doing because I think
Yeah.
with tour, I'm usually not doing anything too creative on tour because I'm the one running the show.
Okay.
Um, so
Yeah,
I'm
your
always,
thoughts are like occupied. Yeah.
yeah, I'm thinking about, like the day sheet for the next day and like the hotel we're staying in and like, getting paid at the end of the show
Mm-hmm.
and making sure I eat, just like
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, but if I'm at home um, and I'm bored, I'm usually like, I don't know, I don't get bored that often, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Lately, it's been a little bit more apparent just because I've been again like actively just trying to teach myself how to relax. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and being bored, I think, is a part of that. Like not looking at your phone and like, sometimes I'll leave my phone at home and go for a walk, and the walk feels a little like a separation from everything, my online algorithmic universe, and like separated
Mm-hmm.
from everything. Sometimes I feel sometimes like I feel the walls are closing in. So taking a
Mm-hmm.
walk is almost always a way to beat that. Um, but a lot of my creative ideas come to me in the shower, actually.
Okay.
Either in the shower or um, I used to do this thing where I would write a whole song in my head at work. Um, I used to have a job where I worked at a car dealership, and it allowed me the freedom to just, I was on the car lot all day, moving cars around and running errands and stuff, and that gave me a lot of time to just, I'd be in the car by myself. I come up with like a vocal idea or like a drum
Mm-hmm.
pattern, and I would just be like like in my phone or whatever,
Nice.
just
Yeah.
to keep it going in my head. And then I would get home, and I
Mm-hmm.
would just like the whole thing would just like flow out of
Come
me,
out. Yeah.
and that's how I wrote a lot of the songs on the self-titled record and on my first EP, Cellophane. Like all that stuff was written basically in my head while I was working.
Mm-hmm.
Just coming up with all the parts, the bass part, the guitars, the vocals, the drums, like, um, and I think now, like, a lot of my ideas come to me when I'm doing dishes or in the shower,
Okay.
so I always
Yeah.
have to have my phone close by in case I need to, like, just do a little voice memo into my phone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So yeah, I've probably got a few albums worth of ideas at this point.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Nice. Yeah, I like asking people that question because it's always like it's always very interesting for me. Um, for me, I've found over time it's actually like in moments of boredness, like when I'm not doing anything, that it sort of the best ideas just pop into my head. I don't know.
Mhm.
It goes back to that thing of like, when you tell yourself, I don't know if you get this, but if I tell myself, okay, I need to be creative. I need to like write. I really enjoy writing, like short stories and things like that. It's just like for myself. I've always really loved writing.
Yeah.
And if I tell myself, like I haven't done something for weeks or for months, I better like lock in now and sit down and start something. It's just not going to happen. Like
Mhm.
I'm sure there's exercises and ways around it, but I don't know. I've tried
Yeah.
and it just doesn't happen for me. I don't know.
Yeah. I've been kind of facing that challenge just a little bit since I've been working because usually when I get home from work, I'm immediately like starting dinner,
Hmm.
and getting things, situated for the evening. And, my partner will come home and we'll eat dinner together and, we'll watch whatever show we're going to watch or watch a movie or something. And, I go to bed a lot earlier these days. I'm going to bed at like
Hmm.
30, 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
And, I get home at 5. So from 5 to 10 with, making dinner and, making sure that, my partner and I are getting to see each other and stuff. It's like, um, I have to be a little bit more conscientious of when I'm making music. Because I have a few more responsibilities than I used to, and it's really important to me to maintain my routine, and not
Mhm.
fall off.
Mhm.
It kind of feels like this is a bit of a tangent, but like I always felt like moving to Kansas City was an opportunity to finish growing up. Um,
Okay.
there's not really anything here to distract me.
Yeah.
There's no parties or, um, you know, just stuff to kind of like keep you from uh, learning more about yourself.
Hmm.
I think one of my main takeaways from living in LA is a lot of the people there, including myself, are kind of living in like a fantasy.
Hmm.
Um, it's like my fantasy, my version of that fantasy was like, as long as I'm here, as long as I still live here, I'm making it. I'm doing it.
Hmm.
And I was there from 2018 until the end of 2023, and during that time, like I think like from 2018 until the pandemic, 2020, um, I was making a lot of music in my spare time, but I had a full-time job, and
Yeah.
I was working like 50 hours a week. Like it was a hard job. And I would come home and I would just sit at my computer and make as much music as I could before I would fall asleep and just do it all over again. But I wasn't playing shows. I wasn't a full-time musician. Um, and then from 2021 until 2023 was the kind of my window to like basically everything that I've put out, like whether it was Say Things, Destroyer, like all the videos we did, like the Art of Few session, all the touring that I did, all happened in like those 3 years.
Yeah.
Um, and during that time, I wasn't really like growing up at all. I was just so focused on like getting to that next level with
Hmm.
my career that a lot of my personal relationships suffered and my relationship with myself was really suffering.
Hmm.
um, it wasn't until I think it was right before that tour we did with Sleeping with Sirens. I had a psychedelic uh, trip. I took some
Okay.
some mushrooms and
Yeah.
uh, kind of had to kind of break through the shell I had around my brain and see what was really going on in there.
Hmm.
Um, and that was a really intense but necessary experience. I would say my trip was what you would call a bad trip, but
Hmm.
it was necessary for some character development, and
Okay.
realizing that the life I was living was not sustainable.
Yeah.
Um, and
Some changes were needed.
the person that I had become was not the person that I wanted to be.
I remember, I think this was like, could have been last year or the year before. You mentioned on your Instagram that you were kind of trying to do this transition. I think it might have been like just before you moved, that you were
Yeah,
trying to find like balance in your life and trying to, find joys in other things that aren't just music. I remember sort of reading your post. I think we might have even had like a brief discussion about this.
I
And
think
I
we did.
remember
Yeah,
reading, yeah, I remember reading it, and I was in such a like bad space at the time. So when I read that, I felt so good because I felt like I wasn't alone in the sense that I was also in this like weird cycle that you were talking about, how you can sort of get so like consumed by the industry and like go, go, go that your relationships take strain. I remember reading that and feeling not as alone. And I told myself this year that I'm gonna sort of, well, actually, I've been implementing it for a few months, but sort of try and be more present this year and try to start other projects that are separated from just like touring and artist management, which is
yeah.
basically what got me to start doing this series. Just hearing what other people have to say.
I think I have a lot more. appreciation for what it takes to be at a high level, you know. And I guess maybe the word isn't appreciation. It's almost pity in a way, you know.
Hmm.
'Cause I remember the kind of stress I was under just being sort of like an underground to like mid-tier artist.
Yeah.
And I think that is a pretty stressful position because you have almost no power. And when it comes
And you have a
to,
lot of responsibilities as well. Like
yeah,
you're basically running the whole show, you know?
yeah, yeah, but you're still coming up against these like gatekeepers, essentially,
Hmm.
industry of people who see that you have talent, but it's almost like they're testing you to see how bad you want it. They're seeing how what you'll say yes to and what you
Yeah.
will, lay down for, to see if you're really willing to work
Hmm.
for them. And it's like, well, that's not really why I'm here.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, actually.
Yeah, I think the reason that I didn't get further was because I said no to a lot of that stuff.
Mm.
Um, and I got put in positions where, money was being spent in my name. And, a lot of it, I didn't know I had the opposite, the option to say no about.
Hmm.
But as I got further along and I realized like I'm being taken advantage of, or if I say yes to this, uh, the repercussions are only going to affect me, you
Yeah,
know? Like if this doesn't work the way that we're saying it could work, if the strategy doesn't quite work out, the only person who is going to suffer is me.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and the only risk falls on me because if it doesn't work, then uh, I'm just a guy. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I've
Hmm.
I've I have support in the sense that like people listen to the music and there are people that are rooting for me, but like I can't get myself out of any real situations. I need help.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that to me is a pretty big red flag, you know, tours falling through or like ending a tour in the red, um, or things not getting done on time or whatever. Like I was taking all
Consuming it
that.
all.
Yeah, like I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, well, this is my fault because it's my thing, and like all these people are
Yeah.
counting on me. So it really became like almost like a cancer for me, where it was kind of eating me from the inside out, and I couldn't let any of it go until it's actually when I started working with Jacqueline, where I was, we the first time we ever met, it was basically like therapy for me.
Hmm.
I had to kind of expel all of this
All of
stuff,
it.
yeah, and explain like what had happened, and you know, we were able to kind of re just like revamp a few things so that the tours that we did do ended up being a little, a little less like we weren't staying in hotels every night. We weren't, there was no per diems or whatever. It's like
Hmm.
we're gonna
Like
split
strip it
everything.
down.
We're gonna
Yeah.
strip it way down. We're gonna get a really inexpensive rental, and we're just gonna we're gonna share gear. Let's
Hmm.
make this as simple and as economical as possible.
Hmm.
Um, and I think if I, looking back, if I had thought about that before, I think I could have avoided a lot of issues. But you don't know what you don't know. I had no
No,
idea how to
exactly.
work. There wasn't a lot of like information,
No.
honestly, especially like post pandemic. It's like people weren't really talking about touring or mental health together
Hmm.
yet.
Hmm.
Um, it's become a much bigger conversation now, but I don't think people were really aware of like how demanding it is, and again, how easy it is to get taken advantage of when it comes to like money and
Yeah.
um, yeah, just being at that level. It's not always as cut and dried as it seems.
I think it doesn't matter whether you are starting out, mid-tier, really big. I think every musician has the same sort of feelings and fears and doubts and anxiety, even the people on top. Sometimes I think they have it even worse. They have
Oh,
like other things that are
100%.
easier. They have people
Sure.
like running different departments for them. But yeah, it's just it's so high inten it's such a like high intensity thing that I don't know about you, but something I struggle with is I can't talk about these things with like people that aren't in the industry, for example, because there's just
Sure.
no way that they would be able to relate to anything
Yeah.
that you're saying. So this is cool, like actually speaking to people like you and other people where I guess you just don't feel so alone. You don't feel like there's
Yeah.
something wrong with you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I've definitely have not been shy about my opinions about the industry at this point. Like I don't even call it the music business anymore because it's not a business, you know, like
Yeah.
we might pretend it is, but it's really not. It's
Hmm.
something totally different. And it's kind of always been that way, you know. I think we are in a time where artists are able to sort of advocate for themselves at the very least. They can share their stories. They have, you know, their own individualistic platforms that they're able to,
Hmm.
um, you know, really uh, portray what they're trying to say in like a true way versus like it being filtered through the label or being filtered through all
A bunch
these
of people. Yeah.
people, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I mean, people at the higher level, it's like obviously there is this sort of image to upkeep for the sake of, um, you know, the money factor. You know, it's like you know, we need Taylor Swift to appear a certain way so that she can make $1 billion next year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, so things that she may be saying are heavily edited and heavily, you know, everything is very choreographed to deliver a specific message to a specific group of people. And again, if that's how it works up there, that's fine. But I think at this kind of mid level, it's like, um, yeah, it's not business; it's survival, you know.
Hmm.
And if you can survive to that point where you do have those people who are doing that shit for you, you may not even like it, honestly, you know,
Hmm.
because I don't know, we talk about or I should say, selling out has always been this big phrase within music of like when you sort of abandon your values or your morals for the sake of money or attention or you know whatever. Um, but you get to that level, and it's so isolating. I would imagine
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
like you know I can't imagine like being like I don't know like Sabrina Carpenter or something and not being able to just like go to the grocery store. You know,
No, I
like
couldn't.
that would be such a strange feeling of like having everybody like around you like treating you like we'll say again Sabrina Carpenter like just treating you like that
Hmm.
versus you know and I guess I experienced that on a very small level you know because I go to a show that has and my name is like at the top of the bill and people come up to me and they obviously treat me differently because
Hmm.
they have admiration for my music. I really appreciate when people come to my shows at all, first of all.
Hmm.
And when they buy merch and when they know the words, it's like, to me, I never expected that. I never
Hmm.
expected that anybody was going to hear my music, period. You know,
Hmm.
I was always just making the music for like my friends in Buffalo and like to fit into the scene there, you know, and the fact that you know, I wouldn't say it's, you know, Mags is not the biggest band on the planet or whatever, but like there is a little bit of an underground buzz for Mags going, you know, it's like
Hmm.
I appreciate that that exists and that I have these sort of tethers in all these different places in the world and people that connect to my experience. So if I see them in person, to me, that means everything that they just are
Hmm.
there. So I'm able to like just let that be what I lead with. It does require me to be a little bit more on than I
Hmm.
usually am. And that can be a little exhausting after doing it for, you know, a few weeks straight.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, to me, it's like, I just want to give them the same amount of love that they're showing me because like,
Hmm.
uh, you know, I don't know that I really did anything to deserve it, except I just made the songs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, maybe I'm just kind of feeling lost or whatever. It's like, okay, like there are people out there that give a shit and people that care. And, um, you know, I wouldn't say that's why I do it, but I think it really helps motivate me.
Helps.
Yeah,
Yeah, it helps put it
yeah,
into perspective. Like people care what you have to say because I think because they can relate, I think it boils down to that at the end of the day. It's
yeah, it
people
does.
either feel something or they relate in some way or other. Um, in any art form, really, not just music, in any art form. Do
Yeah.
you do you watch a lot of movies? Are you like
Um,
into a lot of movies? Not really. Like,
so my partner is really into movies. And so I've seen a lot of movies now
mhm.
because of them. Um, but I typically don't watch a lot of like TV or movies if I'm just by myself.
Mhm.
Um, I like movies. I wouldn't say I love movies, but there are definitely movies that like I've seen that have inspired me to like want to make music or, you know, I really do like good cinematography, good lighting, good
Yeah,
colors,
yeah.
like that kind of stuff is, um, I really appreciate that. We just watched this one yesterday. I can't remember what it's called right now. Uh, it was like it's Emma Stone and Steve Carell from like 2017, and they're playing like tennis players.
Oh, uh, um, no, I'm thinking of a different movie with the two of them, where I think he's her dad. It's like a
Oh, whoa.
comedy.
Let me
Um,
see.
I think it's like with Ryan Gosling or something.
It's
Same
called
cast.
Battle of the Sexes. This movie.
Oh, right. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, it was okay. It was pretty fun, but like
Hmm.
you know, I don't know. I like movies from like the last decade, like not
Hmm.
the 2020s. I think all the
Okay.
movies from nowadays look bad.
Hmm.
Typically, they just look too
Hmm.
stale and like I don't know. There's like too much emphasis on like the colors looking good on everything.
Hmm.
Whereas like if you watch a movie from like the 90s or 80s or
It's
2000s, it's
got that
like there's
like
like
grit.
it's
Hmm.
got more grit to it. They shot it on film, obviously, so there's a little bit
Yeah.
more like it feels more like I'm watching a film versus like I
Yeah.
watched a
Like
movie that was shot on.
staged.
Yeah, like a lot
Yeah.
of movies now look like they're shot on iPhones, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, and also like too harsh lighting as well. That's like a
Yeah,
Netflix thing. They love to do that. It almost feels like you're watching something. I don't know, it's like artificial lighting. Even when
totally.
it's like a scene outside, and I'm like, why do that? Why not just use the natural elements? I don't get it. It's definitely like a certain style that I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm not a
Yeah, yeah.
fan.
So we tend to watch movies from like movies that we watched or like were coming out around like our like um I don't know, I'd say like anywhere between like 95 and like probably like 2015 is a good
Okay.
time for movies in my opinion.
Yeah. The last two questions I think that I want to ask you, which I'm kind of asking like everyone I'm talking to.
Mhm.
The first one, what would you tell your younger self? And the second one, what would you change in the music industry or touring
Mhm.
industry? I guess it's the same thing.
If I was to talk to my younger self, I
Mm.
would say take a business class.
Okay. Okay.
First of all, like I don't care if you think it's boring. If this is something that you want to do professionally, like learn just basic business, like just have an understanding of like and just like and know your value, know your worth,
Hmm.
you know. Don't don't allow yourself to like don't say yes to things just because you think it will, maybe work out. Like be a
Yeah.
little bit more cognizant and aware of the fact that like most people don't have your best interest in mind and they're trying to make money off of you, you
Hmm.
know.
Good
So
answer.
I would probably, if I'm to sit down with 15 or 16-year-old me, be like, enjoy the creative part and like put all you have into, learning how to record yourself and, getting better at your instruments, but like put as much energy into learning, just be smart, just learning how to be
Yeah.
smart. I get that question a lot of, what are you telling to the younger generation? And like my answer before was probably like make music for yourself and not for
Hmm.
anyone else, but don't make it to blow up. Don't make it to for attention. It's like if you have to
Hmm.
do it, then do it and like don't worry about anything else. Don't like literally don't make a song thinking about how well it's gonna do. Just make the
Hmm.
song. But
Isn't
now
there, there's that like saying, make something with the intention that no one will ever see it or read it or hear it, you know?
yeah, exactly that. Yeah, that's where the most authentic stuff comes from. That's where the stuff where, it's like the stuff I'm the most excited about was stuff that I never thought was going to be released.
Hmm.
Uh, but I think nowadays, if you're gonna pursue music, it's gonna benefit you to have some knowledge of the business more than anything.
Definitely.
As far as what I would change about the music industry or touring industry, um, if I have all power, I'm probably going to just like dissolve Live Nation as a whole, just like break that shit up.
I think he'll
um,
have a lot of people on board.
yeah, I think so too. Just yeah, lower ticket prices, and this might be a bit of a hot take, but lately I've been thinking about how to get off of like streaming platforms like
Mm.
entirely. Um, it seems daunting because there's part of me that loves having access to anything at any time. If I get in the mood to hear, something I used to like when I was like 17, I can just pull it up and listen to it and feel the
Yeah.
nostalgia and get the dopamine
Yeah.
rush and everything. Versus when I was a kid, I'd have to go to the library and order the CD and wait for it to come in, and then I would get it and I would burn it to my
Hmm.
computer and then put it on my iPod, and it was a whole process.
Hmm.
But lately, I think I've been feeling like streaming is um, it almost, how can I say this? This is a really hard concept to get across, but it's like it's sort of diluting people's taste in music. It cheapens
Hmm.
it. Like what we were saying, like
Yeah.
music has become sort of not as high value of an art form as maybe some other things, you
Hmm.
know. Um, and I think streaming has a lot to do with that. Like streaming is instant gratification. It's feeding these corporations and they keep raising the prices and pulling shit that like uh, none of us should be standing for, but we just get over it
It's
because
true. Yeah.
I get my
It's
music whenever I want.
it's because it's like so normalized, I guess,
Yeah,
It's just become the
yeah.
norm.
So I've been thinking about like what it would look like to kind of go back to having like a separate music player, or like an
Hmm.
iPod Classic or something that I'm putting my music that I want onto it, and like I don't know, almost like resetting in a way, you
Hmm.
know. Um, I do like a lot of different styles of music, but I think the music that I actually want to buy or pay for is probably a lot less than I think. No, I would encourage more people to think about this a bit
Hmm.
more because I think we're all aware of how evil most of these corporations are, and you know I spend like $17 a month on Apple Music for me and my partner, and that's $17 I could be spending on anything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And just to have access to everything, it's a little. I don't know. I'm trying to kind of like make it make sense in my head enough to actually take the leap. you know?
Hmm. Hmm. And I think it's just like more intentional, maybe look
Yeah.
at it like that, then it's not so overwhelming. Like everything you do, you want to do it with more intention. That might be an easier way to.
Yeah, I like that.
Also, you've said it now on this recording, so you got like you
Yeah,
got
you're
some
not wrong.
responsibilities now. People are gonna listen and be like, "Hey, by the way, did you,
Some
you know?"
accountability. Yeah, yeah. I could see it being like almost like a performative thing. Someone's like, "Oh, is that an iPod, bro?" That's like, yes, but it's not like I'm just carrying it around just to,
Yeah.
look a certain way. They actually make there's a few companies that will mod old iPods with like more modern amenities, like more storage and like USB-C
Uh-huh.
port stuff like that. And like
Oh,
I think there's even
cool.
an option for Bluetooth, which is pretty cool.
Hmm. Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, if I were to do something like that, I would probably go that way.
I think so,
And
yeah.
yeah, so yeah, but maybe put some serious intention into that. One day I might feel like I could very easily jump back in. I
Hmm.
could very easily just start making a record right now. I've got songs and I would probably do it in a more well, I've got some ideas as to like how I would make the record, and what it would sound like. But they're just ideas. And then
Yeah.
the next day I might be like, I don't have any interest in pursuing that anymore, and like I'm
Hmm.
very content with where I'm at in my life right now, and I need this time to just be Elliot and not have to like
Worry
bounce.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it kind of flip-flops, but I think I tend to lean more towards the latter side of things, where I'm okay with not being um, as active. But everything is still kind of working in the background, and I haven't
Hmm.
quit. I haven't given it up or anything. I just don't have the bandwidth to be jumping into the music industry with any expectations right now.
Hmm. I think it's great for other musicians to also maybe when this episode comes out to hear you say that because I'm sure there's a lot of other people that are in the same boat as you, you know? And
Yeah, I think.
I'm sure there's
Yeah.
some shame maybe that comes with feeling like that as well, right? Like
Yeah. Well,
guilt
I'll
maybe?
I'll say this real quick. When I initially was saying like I'm not going to be touring as much anymore. You probably saw I posted this whole long statement about it, and it's still up on my Instagram at this point. But I that post got like probably more engagement than anything that I posted prior.
Hmm.
And people that I had, it kind of left my algorithm and it went into this kind of far-reaching corners of the internet, and like lots of bands, and like I was seeing a lot of like verified bands liking my post, or like
Yeah.
I had people in my DMs like just being like, man, like this is how I feel. This is exactly how I feel, and
Yeah.
like thank you for saying this, because um, this is how I've been feeling for a year or years or months or whatever. Like I just don't have uh I don't feel like I have a way out though. I don't
Hmm.
feel like it's just easy enough to just stop. I feel like I have to keep going. That was where a lot of people were coming from. And the fact that I chose to stop, the very last thing I think for me was at the end of 2024, I want to say. I was just about to renew my deal, my record deal for the next album, and there was some um, things pertaining to the budget and pertaining to expectations from the label for me that they weren't sitting very well with me,
Hmm.
and I kept just kind of almost like gaslighting myself, just being like, well,
It's
like if you
okay.
do it like that, I'm having to kind of
Yeah.
like really, really talk myself
Like,
into it.
yeah.
Yeah. And then I got hired at this job. I remember getting that email and looking at my phone and just being like, this is what I want. This is it.
Hmm.
So I chose to get this job, and I walked away from that deal because um, it felt like this is your new path. You know,
Yeah.
that was kind of like I spent like a few months like agonizing over this deal, and then when this job opportunity came up, all that stuff just immediately
Yeah.
evaporated. So it wasn't a hard choice to make when it came down to it, because I had already checked out. If I'm being honest, I had
Mm-hmm.
been checked out
Mm-hmm.
since like um, probably like after Destroyer came out in August of 23, because like that album came out and like nothing really happened. If I'm being honest, um, it didn't quite do what I was expecting it to do.
Yeah.
I love that album, and I worked really hard on it, and I think those are some of my best songs. Um, but I felt like it was, I wouldn't even say poorly received. It's just like I don't think people heard it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't like, I think with every release we were kind of doing this, and I felt like it kind of either went this way or it just stayed where we were, and like um,
Mm-hmm.
that was a little discouraging. We did a tour in 2023 at the beginning, um, where it was just like the album wasn't even done yet, but we were playing the songs. It was like an album preview tour. Um,
Nice.
Most of those shows sold out. We did like eight or
Mm-hmm.
nine shows, and like most of them were sold out because people were like, what's next?" There's the
Yeah.
hype of like, what's
Yeah.
next? Like, I remember selling out the Echo in LA, and
Oh, that's
that was kind of
amazing.
like that was like my family was there, like everybody
Yeah.
was there, and like it just felt like, oh, this is gonna happen. Like this is like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember someone came up to me after the show and they're like, "You're never gonna have to play this venue again. You're about to go like,
You're gonna
you know,
blow
like,
up.
yeah." And I
Yeah.
was like, "Okay, whatever." And then a few months later, like shit's just like, "Nyeh," So
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, it's always kind of been this like this kind of moment for me. That album was always this moment of like, maybe you need to second guess some things. Maybe you need to reevaluate some things.
Yeah.
I knew when I named it Destroyer, I was going through some stuff in my life at that point, and Destroyer was very much like a almost like an omen, you know, because I was like, I feel like my life is about to change a lot, and then
Mm-hmm.
I was living on the air mattress in my friend's spare room, and yeah,
Yeah.
um, so
It did
yeah,
change.
it changed a
Just
lot.
not in
Yeah.
the way you were maybe expecting it to.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm still proud of that album. Like I feel like it's gonna age really well as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Um, there's a really good David Bowie quote, more so for like the artist side of things. And like I don't remember the exact quote, but like the long and short of it is basically like, if you are creating art that you feel totally comfortable like creating, like you're not going deep enough. You should be just at a
True.
point where your toes like don't touch the bottom.
Yeah.
And
Where you're like a bit uncomfortable.
yeah, that's exactly where I was when I was making Destroyer. I kept just being like, is this too weird? And I was like, you know
Mm-hmm.
what, fuck it. Like I like it, and it feels right, and I don't need to question it. I don't need to think about if people are gonna like it. Let me just
Yeah.
do it.
We've been chatting for quite a while.
Yeah, it's a cool 2 hours.
Mm-hmm. I love it though. I could
Yeah.
like go on. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
I probably could too. I'm sort of a chronic yapper, unfortunately.
Me too. Me
Yeah.
too. Do you have any plans for the rest of the day? You're just gonna take it easy.
Yesterday was my day to take it easy. Today I am going to be working on that score, finishing that
Oh,
up.
nice. Exciting.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool. It's one of my friends I used to live with in LA. He I don't think he lives there anymore, but he is a filmmaker, and he's been making these short films recently, just like as passion projects and submitting them
Mm-hmm.
to uh, different what are they called, festivals, like film festivals.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, and yeah, a few months ago, he had asked me to contribute some music to his most recent one. So it's been kind of a slow process because we had the holidays, and then obviously working full time, I have to kind of find
Juggle.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be a little bit tricky to find like a big block of time to get a lot done.
Mm-hmm.
But so today's my day to hopefully put some finishing touches and like finish some of the more like fine tuning elements of the tracks. So
Nice.
yeah, and then I'm probably going to just like do some light cleaning around the house, stuff like that.
Nice. Nice. Well, enjoy. I'm just gonna chill. It's like afternoon, late afternoon here now. So
Okay, yeah.
might order a pizza. I feel like it's, takeaway Sunday. So might do
I've
that.
been thinking about that too. Like I've been thinking about ordering something because uh just feeling kind of lazy.
Same.
One less thing to think about.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
best of luck with that. And thank you again.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you again for reaching out, and this has been really nice.
Between tracks.